your phone are the way of the future. And if you've got a phone like the ONEPLUS 11 with this many lenses on the back, you might as well make use of it to the best of your ability. So whether you're a photographer or just another human who wants to take better photos with your smartphone, then this video is for you. We've got 10 tips for mobile street photography because that's usually where you want to take better photos, right? Oh, and big thanks to ONEPLUS for sponsoring today's video. All right, so first things first, let's talk about the smartphone or camera that we're shooting with today. So this is the ONEPLUS 11. It has a 50 megapixel Sony IMX890 quad pixel primary sensor with optical image stabilization that specializes in high dynamic range capturing. It has a 48 megapixel Sony IMX581 ultra wide camera. It also has a 32 megapixel portrait tele lens with 2x optical zoom. So all in all, the ONEPLUS 11 is a really powerful tool to have in your pocket, but that doesn't mean much if you don't know how to use it properly. So these tips are gonna help you make the most out of your smartphone camera. So one of the most common mistakes that, a lot of people make when shooting, but especially if you're new to photography and even new to shooting with your smartphone, is just getting a level photo. In this case, turning on the grid lines is a really easy way to just ensure that your photo is straight and level and lining up with whatever building or architecture or subject that is in your image. So a good tip is to take that bottom grid line and line it up with the ground. And then if you're shooting up like I am right now, then just tilt the camera upwards, keep it at the same angle, and you'll have a straight and level photo. Because it's really hard without those grid lines to make sure that your photo is perfectly level. And if it is a little crooked, that's, not a great photo and a sign of an amateur. This next tip is essentially just to try out several different angles and different perspectives to make sure that you're getting the most interesting photo. So a few different ways that you can do this is to get really low, angle the camera upwards, get really high. In this case, I don't have a ladder or any other way of getting higher. Just do something different than just standing in front of something and at eye level just taking the photo. Maybe moving to a 45-degree angle, low to the side. Again, using those grid lines to make sure it's nice and level. It gets kind of boring when you are just taking photos from eye level all the time, and you can make a much more interesting photo by changing up the altitude. So tip number 3 is using the zoom function or the zoom lens on your smartphone, because what that is going to do is add some beautiful depth to your photo. It's going to allow you to get right up close and personal to whatever you're trying to shoot, and it'll add a little bit of softness in the background, so giving you a little bit of that DSLR effect, if you will. You can also level this up by putting something in the foreground, whether that's some branches or just anything that's right in front of you that will also add depth to that photograph, and it will have that same blurred effect as well.
An important note is that when using the zoom function on a smartphone like the ONEPLUS 11, you have optical zoom up to 2x, which retains all image quality, and then digital zoom up to 20x, which can come at the cost of some image quality.
So if you're ever in doubt that your photo is level or you just have shaky hands, you can rest your phone on a surface like that ledge I just used, lean it up against something, or even use a tripod if you do have one. But basically that's just going to ensure that your photo is level, it's steady, especially if you're shooting in low light. This will be really helpful to make sure that you get a really sharp photo. A super easy way to level up just what would be a basic photo is to use rule of thirds. Now, if you don't know what the rule of thirds is, lucky you, I have a couple videos on this and on composition that you can go watch. But in the meantime, rule of thirds is essentially dividing your frame up into 3 sections and using that to place your subject in a very aesthetically and artistic way. And it just draws your eye towards the subject in kind of a more unique yet purposeful way that's a little different than them just being in the center. And I use it a lot. Big fan. So most smartphones now, and 100% the OnePlus 11 does have this feature. It allows you to actually use manual settings like you would a DSLR-like camera. So this just gives you so much more control for your photo, and if you don't know how to use any of these settings, that's a lot to go into for this video, so I'll have some linked up here and in the description. So once you get to this stage, it allows you to create some really, really cool effects, and if there's one tip you're gonna take home in this video and something to spend more time on, I would say it would be this tip. There's just so much more flexibility and you can have so much more fun once you really start manipulating some of these manual settings. So just because you're in a dark environment doesn't mean you have to reach for your flash every single time. Use flash sparingly. And remember when we talked about manual settings, that's when you can switch to those and adjust them all to brighten your image even if it is dim. What that's gonna do is create a much more evenly lit image, and with a phone that's as powerful as the OnePlus 11, it's still gonna be really sharp, it's not gonna have a lot of grain in it, and you're not gonna have that cheesy flash photo. But you can also use flash to create some really cool effects. My editor Josh loves taking flash photos with his phone, and he'll take them of his meal and he'll actually like blur them. He'll move the phone a little bit while he takes them, and it can also create a really, really cool effect. So just know how flash is going to affect your photo and don't overuse it. In these lighting conditions, it also wouldn't be useful or applicable at all. So experiment and see what works for you.
The OnePlus 11 also has night mode, which allows you to take natural, well-lit photos at night without the need for a flash.
One really cool feature that the OnePlus 11 has is the ability to change the focus. So you can use this to draw attention to your subject and to play around with the composition and where you actually want that blur to be placed in your image and where you want it to be sharp. Pay attention to things like reflections and puddles and mirrors and windows, because all of those things can add some really interesting dimension and level up your photo. So getting low and using those puddles on the ground and using those windows and just seeing all of the different angles and perspectives you can get can really add a cool effect to your photo. So experiment. There are no rules to this. You'll just find out what's cool and what works for you. Everyone's favorite effect when shooting with a smartphone, because this effect looks expensive. It's shooting with portrait mode. So that's gonna mimic a portrait style lens. It's gonna allow you to get close to your subject, whether that's a person, an animal, an object, add that beautiful soft depth in the background, and just make your photo look more expensive. And a lot of this work is done, I could say, in camera or in smartphone, and it's super fun and easy to play around with. Well, I hope you guys feel better prepared for your smartphone street photography now. And once again, big thanks to OnePlus for sponsoring today's video. And if you guys like this video, please give it a like down below. It really helps support this channel. Comment, drop it low if you have anything else you would like to see me shoot with smartphone photography, and notification bell, and all that other stuff that I say in all the other videos. I'm too cold to do this outside, and I don't know why we chose to shoot this outside.